My family wants me for Christmas after 8 years of estrangement, but can I forgive them when they only care about my grandfather's inheritance? My family has invited me, my wife, 27 female, and my daughter, 1 female, for Christmas after we were disowned 8 years ago. After my friends gave me different opinions, one of them suggested that I submit my problem here to receive feedback from strangers on the internet. I am a 25-year-old man who is the youngest of 4 children. My mom is 52 and my dad is 54. My siblings are my twin brother Casey, 25, male. Sarah, 28, female, and Michael, 31, male. For background, I was the family's black sheep growing up, and I was aware of that from an early age. You see, there are a lot of athletes in my family. My mom played volleyball. Michael played soccer. Sarah played softball. Casey was the team's outstanding running back, and my dad was a standout basketball player at a D2 school. My parents were always interested in my siblings and hardly ever came to my events, so I had to practically beg them to come to my tournaments. I was never really interested in any of those physical sports, but I was interested in archery, which my family referred to as a wimpy sport. I competed in over 20 tournaments between the ages of 14 and 16, but my parents only attended one. Although they never abandoned me, they never showed me the same level of emotional support that they did for my brothers. I was angry about that as a teenager. Every time I attempted to discuss this with them, they would accuse me of being attention-seeking. But this isn't the reason my family disowned me. I started dating Amy, 25, female, who was in my grade at the time, when I was 15. I introduced her to my parents and siblings after we had been dating for approximately 6 or 7 months, and they all thought she was great. Even though I was young, I could imagine us working together in the future. After nearly 2 years, I was informed by one of Amy's former friends that she had been unfaithful to me for a few months. I didn't know who the man was at the time, but she told me it was my twin brother when I confronted her. She essentially informed me that although she loved me at first, her love for my brother was greater. When I confronted Casey at home later that day, I was so furious that I gave him a sucker punch and knocked him unconscious. I acknowledged that I shouldn't have acted violently, but my animosity toward him and my family simply exploded. I was transferred to live with my 48-year-old paternal aunt, who was now distant from the family and resided in a different city about 2 hours away. In exchange for my family not pursuing charges against me, I could have been prosecuted as an adult in court. Since then, I haven't communicated with them. It was difficult at first, but I eventually got over my desire for a relationship with them with the help of my aunt and her 48-year-old husband. After attending a university in my aunt's city and transferring to a different high school, I earned my degree as an electrical engineer. After a while, I met my wife and we were married. I considered inviting them to my wedding, but I decided against it because I didn't want any controversy. After that, my wife and I purchased a home an hour's drive from my aunt, and a year later, we were blessed with a daughter. Then, roughly a week ago, my parents messaged me on Facebook to invite me to spend Christmas at their place so we could catch up. I informed them that while I could have other plans, I would think about it and provide them with a definitive response shortly. Later, I received strange friend requests from Sarah and Michael. Because she is 2 months pregnant and does not want to deal with any additional stress, my wife has informed me that if I travel, she and my daughter will spend Christmas at my father-in-law's place. I concur with her. I would like to know if it would be wise for me to go and try to make amends with my family. Having a hard time deciding what to do. On the one hand, they might want to apologize because they feel horrible about what they did to me. However, I could be forced to apologize to Casey if I go there, which is something I don't want to do. Any guidance would be beneficial. Viewpoint. To start with, except for your aunt, your entire family seems like a bunch of jerks. The only cool person here is her. If I were you, I would inform them that I am spending Christmas with my wife, daughter, and father-in-law, thus I am unable to go. I would inquire as to whether choosing a different time is truly vital to them. That is, if you want to make amends with them or if you're interested in finding out what they want. There are many various circumstances in life that can help you alter your opinion, but I must admit that it seems a little strange that your brother and sister decided to add you as a friend after 8 years of no communication, following your parents' Facebook message. For this reason, if you're interested in meeting them, I wouldn't do it at your house or at theirs on Christmas. Meet in a park or someplace like, and then see where things go. Tell them to stop contacting you and that you're just not accessible if you're not interested in making amends. Proceed with your life after blocking them on social media. What are your thoughts on the matter as a whole? If you were in OP's position, how would you respond? Tell me in the space provided for comments. Remarks from the community. As a parent, I can't imagine not being able to communicate with one of my children for 8 years after my other child done something so horrible to him, as stated in Minute Box 3852. He struck him then. I simply cannot imagine that. If my son ever did something like hit his brother, I would completely understand. We're all still only human, even if I'm not supposed to say it. It's up to you if you can get over the fact that they turned their backs on you for 8 years and left you for your aunts. I'm not sure if I could myself. I doubt anyone would blame you if you're unable to see them again and choose not to. They are unaware of the whole tale if they do. They are also not worth your attention if they are aware of the whole story. Surprise Pants exclaims, "My man, there are no good answers here. I would spend Christmas with your current immediate family if they value it. You might pick a less stressful time and calmly express it that way if you want to spend time with an alienated family. I can understand if your family is a bunch of jerks, but it doesn't sound like anything serious happened that you couldn't all handle. Reconnecting might be worthwhile. At least you can try, even though my pessimistic side says it won't work out. When you do, don't discuss the past with anyone other than your wife and your therapist. Get one if you don't already have one." Angry Patient 18 says, "Making amends during a significant occasion like Christmas is never a good idea. Since it's obvious that they want to get back together because of your child, your wife is quite smart to avoid this event. Tell them you won't miss your daughter's first Christmas but that you're open to having lunch or coffee in a public setting in the new year. One blow to a brother who betrayed you led to your disownment. They were obviously searching for reasons to get rid of you. Now that you have a baby to snuggle, you are only of service to them. Take great care as you tread. They won't be able to see the infant for at least 6 months, even if you don't make amends." Extra details gleaned from OP's remarks. "They invited me to a large Christmas family event and this is the first time they have been in touch with me in 8 years. My parents host a supper for my entire paternal side on Christmas Day. I believe they are attempting to take advantage of me because they invited me on that particular day. Additionally, this is how they got rid of me. My aunt was shunned by her family after coming out as bisexual to them after graduating from college. My maternal grandparents weren't living at the time, and my mother is the only child. My dad essentially gave me away to my aunt because the other siblings refused to take me. Lastly, I've always been envious of my wife's close relationships with her siblings and family. That is the kind of family I always yearned for." Okay, so everyone in the community believes that if the original poster wants to get back together, it must happen at a later date. Naturally, after trust has been built, no one gets to view the infant. In addition, OP provided us with additional background information on his family. Let's now proceed to the update to find out what transpired. Naturally, though, I must tell you about my playlists, such as this one that exclusively has videos with updates. Let's go on to the update now. Update. Hello everyone. Although the past 2 weeks have been difficult, I want to thank everyone for their support and guidance. Allow me to catch up with you. I wanted to post earlier, but a few things got in the way. My wife started having excruciating stomach discomfort 2 days after Christmas, making it difficult for her to stand. I hurried her to the hospital with her sister, a 30-year-old woman, and we learned that my wife had lost the baby. To be honest, telling my wife what had transpired was the worst part for me. My wife had to remain for an additional 2 days because of difficulties related to the operation. To be honest, I have been making an effort to remain strong for my wife and daughter, but I am currently having difficulty. Let's go on to the original post's update. On the same day that I posted, the majority of you left comments urging me to avoid spending Christmas with them due to the holiday's importance. I agreed and made the decision to stay with my wife for the remainder of the holidays. Why should I make time for them when they never made time for me? I thought they would try to argue with me when I texted them this, but instead they stated they appreciated my viewpoint and were excited to see me after the holidays. I therefore started looking into my family to see why they had contacted me. What I discovered is as follows. Michael is employed by a large corporation in my hometown as a corporate lawyer. According to his Facebook page, he married his wife in 2016 and has 2 daughters. It looks like Sarah's husband is a doctor. They had a son together, and she was pursuing a nursing degree 8 years ago. My hometown is home to a friend of mine whose parents are friends with mine. She informed me that Sarah had divorced her first husband, whom she had been dating for years, due to mail fraud when I questioned her about her. Immediately following high school, Casey married Amy, and the 2 of them have 2 children. Using Facebook, I was unable to determine exactly what he or his wife does for a livelihood, but the fact that they purchased a large home during the epidemic indicates that they are not having a lot of financial difficulties. My mother is very interested in the wellness community, and my dad appears to be experiencing a midlife crisis. I then started outlining the reasons they might have sought to get in touch with me. Money. Not likely, given my wife's and my salaries were less than my parents' combined wage 8 years ago. Money is most likely not the cause, given my siblings are not experiencing financial difficulties. Although it doesn't seem likely, organ donation might be the reason. Given that he is my twin, a Redditor suggested that Casey would be my most likely mate. Since he was mentioned in a Facebook post about skiing a week before Christmas, I don't think it's likely. They might be trying to get in touch with me to get a relationship with my kid, but I'm not really sure. I'm not sure why my parents would want to meet my daughter, as she is not their first granddaughter. They probably discovered my daughter's existence because my wife's Facebook page was open to the public. Since then, she has made her account private. Then I called my aunt, the estranged person who took me in, and told her what had happened. She told me why after all this time, they were contacting me. You must comprehend the reasons for my aunt's estrangement in order to comprehend this circumstance. 4 children were born to my 76-year-old grandma and 79-year-old paternal grandfather. My aunt was the third oldest, followed by my dad, who was the second. After graduating from college, my aunt started dating her partner and came out to her parents as bisexual. She was instantly rejected by my grandparents, who also forbade any communication with her. But my grandfather started contacting people around 4 years ago. My grandfather had been inquiring about my life and whether I was married or had children around a month ago. In response to my grandfather's backing of Casey for his actions, my aunt called him out for wanting to know about me. At that point, everything changed. My grandfather informed my aunt that I should be cut off from Amy since I had cheated on her with one of her close friends. My grandfather despises cheating since he is a devout man. My family had informed him that the buddy with whom I had allegedly cheated went to Casey and Sarah for consolation and support after she came clean to Amy. I approached and viciously attacked Casey and Sarah as soon as I learned of this. I did not touch Sarah, and I did not viciously assault Casey, even though she was the one who attempted to separate us. My jaw fell when my aunt told me this. It was unbelievable to me that they detested me so much that they would fabricate a horrible lie about me and disseminate it. Grandpa, who always believed Casey to be a wonderful kid, was startled when my aunt eventually told him the whole truth about what had actually happened, according to my aunt. My aunt refused to share my number when my grandfather requested for it. I understood my parents' and siblings' desire to contact me. It turns out that my grandfather threatened to cut off my parents and siblings from his estate if they would not offer an apology for their treatment of me and invite me to join the family for Christmas dinner. To put it in perspective, he is a multimillionaire. Therefore, they contacted me because they would not receive anything from Grandpa if they didn't, not to express regret for the wrongs they had all done to me in the past. What a group of avaricious individuals. My aunt informed me of this, therefore I made the decision to block them all. For what reason should I answer any of them now? To me, they're all dead. After everything we went through, I have a wife to support and an in-law family that appreciates me. But this is not the end of it. On my work phone, I got a call from an unidentified number 3 days after New Year's Eve. Because of my job, I frequently receive calls from unfamiliar numbers, and when I answered, I heard my grandfather's voice. He probably found my number on the website of my business. He started by apologizing for not attempting to contact me during the previous 8 years. He expressed his sincere regret for being unable to attend significant occasions like my wedding, graduation, and the birth of my daughter. His cutting me off didn't hurt me because we weren't that close before. Later in the call, he informed me that he was adding me to his will and severing the rest of my family because he was so disgusted with them. To be completely honest, I have no idea how to feel about that. Although the money would be beneficial, I do not want him to use it as leverage to pressure me and my daughter into dating. We spoke for around 30 minutes. My grandpa told me something that really infuriated me, but the way the call proceeded gave me hope that we could have a positive relationship. He expressed his disappointment to me about my daughter's refusal to adopt the family name. For background, the question of what last name to use arose after I married my wife. I was unable to adopt my wife's last name for legal reasons, but as a couple, we agreed that all of our future children would bear her last name. I started berating my grandfather at this time, calling him a senior old guy and a lot of other derogatory terms. I instructed him to never get in touch with me again. This man has the gall to imply that after everything I've been through, I won't allow him to use the money I get to manipulate me. I'll give the money to a local charity even if I get it. This is unlikely though, because he is a man of broken promises. I don't care how he perceives me anyway. Money is not the reason I want to be in a relationship with him. He had been trying to get in touch with me and hear my side of the story for 8 years. He claims to be disappointed in me when he does manage to contact me. My wife's and my careers are doing well right now, so maybe we'll be able to pay for our kids' tuition. I will only email him when I'm emotionally prepared. I've had a pretty difficult few weeks, and I'm hoping to get through them. Both my wife and my in-laws have made their Facebook accounts private. I don't understand what they do to try to get in touch with me. Hell, they would undoubtedly try to locate me by hiring a private investigator. I think they are unaware of my residence, but you never know. I've considered obtaining a restraining order, but it will be challenging because there are attorneys in the family. I've stopped using Reddit for the time being. I appreciate all of your advice, and I hope this new year brings you all the best. Will it be? I want to start by sincerely apologizing for the ordeal you and your spouse, in fact, your entire family from that side, went through. Yes, like you say, screw your grandfather and the rest of your family and go on. Cool if he does leave you something. It's also cool if he doesn't. It's not that important, is it? I'm going to end this by wishing you and your wife the greatest possible future. Thank you for sharing, OP, and be careful. After all of that, I do need a post that lifts my spirits, so if you agree, stay with me and let's get started. This post, written by an ex-Wall Street person, comes from the subreddit Malicious Compliance. Legally, I cost Bank of America almost $8,000. For some background, I have over 30 years of experience in the mortgage industry. I am quite familiar with it. Bank of America has never appealed to me, particularly their servicing section. This incident occurred a few years ago. I recently learned about this group. To my annoyance, the mortgage broker I used to restructure my mortgage offered Bank of America the servicing rights. Usually, the organization you pay to service your loan is not the same as the one that owns it. I felt irritated. Since most people at the time assumed that loans would remain on the books for at least 3 years, I calculated that Bank of America spent about $5,000 to service my loan. Additionally, mortgage servicers receive 0.25% of your outstanding loan balance annually, which can be adjusted to 0.375%. It is derived from your bank interest payments. Bank of America revealed that they will be collecting a $5 fee for the convenience of online mortgage payments around 2 months after the servicing move. Unjustified money grab indeed. I consider myself fortunate to be able to contribute a bit more each month to my home payment. I therefore drew out $400 in quarters from my local bank the following month in addition to my home payment. I then proceeded to my neighborhood Bank of America location and gave them my quartered mortgage payment along with other repayment documents. I requested a payment receipt. In order to lower the current debt and, consequently, Bank of America's costs, I overpaid my mortgage. You can write a check, you don't have to pay in coins, the kind branch manager remarked. The branch manager actually chuckled when I answered, I could, but I would charge a $9.50 convenience fee for the stamp on my check and the ink used. They counted the money and gave me my receipt. The charges persisted the next month, so I visited another nearby Bank of America location that had received negative Yelp reviews because of an unfriendly bank manager. I followed suit. Write a check, the branch manager instructed. We do not accept quarters. Should I call the Consumer Financial Protection Board, the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, the top bank regulator in the United States, and the banking commissioner of the local state and inform them that you would not accept legal tender? I requested a conversation with the district manager. A stench was coming from me. He reluctantly had the employees count the quarters after roughly 20 minutes, and I was given a receipt. I informed the management that the next time, I would bring dimes. I brought dimes the following month. He took them, but he kept glaring at me. Bank of America canceled the convenience fee after the payment was made. I refinanced my mortgage at a reduced rate the next month. For a service that they anticipated would last at least 3 years and 5 years to be profitable, Bank of America only received about 6 months' worth of payments. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you. My mom prioritized my sister's brief romance over supporting me during motherhood and the birth of her grandchild. I, 32F, work as an emergency room physician at a large Boston hospital. My baby was christened 2 days ago after I gave birth to her a few weeks ago. My mother, 58F, is now upset that I did not ask her to the wedding or even select her as a godparent. I would like to describe the complex circumstances that resulted in this choice. My relationship with my ex, 34M, a cardiologist at our hospital, ended during my pregnancy, thus I voluntarily became a single mother. After meeting during residency, we dated for 3 years and lived together for 2, which I considered to be a stable relationship. Given our steady jobs and long-term relationship, I brought up marriage when I found out I was expecting. He said nonetheless, that he needed more time to determine whether he was prepared for marriage. I knew I couldn't wait forever at that point in my life because I had a demanding job in emergency medicine. I threatened to end our relationship if he didn't propose. I'm accustomed to making snap decisions because I work as an emergency room physician, and I was ready to be a single mother. Even before I gave him the ultimatum, I knew in my heart that we would end our relationship. What successful marriage begins with one after all? I was right when he moved out in a matter of weeks. At first, he said he wanted to play the role of father. But he also decided he wasn't prepared for fatherhood following our separation. He's now paying child support after I hired a lawyer and spoke with legal medical colleagues. He is welcome to visit at any time, but he hasn't expressed any interest in me, even though I have full custody. I need to focus on my cardiology fellowship right now, he said, almost as if I weren't balancing my own medical career while pregnant. However, my mother's actions during this whole ordeal are the true problem, not my ex. I was mentally in a bad place when my relationship ended early in my pregnancy. Since we are educated to spot the symptoms of depression as medical professionals, I realized I needed help. My coworkers also noticed, particularly when working lengthy overnight shifts in the emergency room. Families usually help out in these kinds of situations, but my friends were the only ones who really stood by me. While running their own medical practices, my two best friends from residency, Kelly, 31F, a pediatrician, and Maria, 32F, another emergency room physician, came to see me as much as they could. I automatically chose them to be my daughter's godmothers because they were the only people who were with me when I went into labor. My mother's exclusion was not a hasty decision. I worked extra ER shifts to earn money for maternity leave while I was pregnant, living alone in my condo close to the hospital. Working 12-hour shifts while pregnant and handling trauma cases wasn't easy. Since Kelly's hospital is distant from mine and Maria is married with a small son, I turned down my friend's offer to stay with me closer to my due date. I had wanted to depend on my mom. She abruptly became more active in my life after finding out about my pregnancy on social media. We weren't very close before that because she usually gave preference to my younger sister, Lisa, 25F. There was an obvious division in our family dynamics. Dad and I were one unit, and Lisa and Mom were another. We only got to see each other on birthdays or holidays once I departed for college. When my dad died 2 years ago after an unexpected heart attack, everything changed. I was working an emergency room shift that night, so I wasn't blind to the irony. My already shaky relationship with my mother and sister was all but broken after his funeral. Even though Lisa and Mom were still inseparable, there was always an imperceptible barrier between us when I first saw them. I eventually came to terms with the fact that Mom valued Lisa more. I found it strange that Mom's conduct altered when I told her I was pregnant. As she started to visit, she expressed her excitement about being a grandma. I phoned her to ask her to stay with me during the last few weeks of my pregnancy, when I was having a lot of back discomfort after working longer shifts. She made a commitment but abruptly canceled, saying she didn't feel safe leaving her house unattended because of thefts in her neighborhood. Despite my severe disappointment, I handled things on my own and didn't pursue the issue. But my mother was the first person I phoned when I went into labor while working the night shift at the hospital. When I told her that I needed her there with me, she first claimed that she was too busy to make it happen. I couldn't comprehend what kind of obligations she could have because it was 2 a.m. on a Sunday. She finally acknowledged that she couldn't be there because she had to be there for Lisa when I pressured her, getting more and more upset in between contractions. She was unable to be with me during the last few weeks of my pregnancy, apparently because Lisa had moved in with her a few weeks prior. Being there for Lisa was the first priority, according to my mother, who revealed that she had recently been abandoned by her boyfriend and was in a very vulnerable state of mind. I was in too much pain to fight, but I honestly couldn't understand how anything could be more significant than being there when your grandchild was born. I hung up after she gave me her explanation and instead called Maria and Kelly. Maria, who works at my hospital, arrived in 15 minutes, took care of all the medical papers, and Kelly arrived right in the delivery room. They supported me the entire time, including helping me get settled for the next few days until I felt confident enough to be alone with the baby. In contrast, my mother didn't get in touch with me for a whole week following the birth of my child. Behaving as casually as if nothing had happened, she texted to ask whether she could come that day. "Hello, sweetie, I thought I'd stop by today to see my granddaughter," she wrote in her message. "What time is most effective?" I didn't reply since that really got under my skin. I acted as though I wasn't home when she unexpectedly arrived that night and stayed until she departed. After that, she kept messaging and tried contacting me multiple times, but I never answered. It's amazing that she never felt the need to express regret or even to admit what had occurred. She continued to send texts like, "Missing my grandbaby" and "Can't wait to babysit," acting as though nothing was wrong. She must have noticed I was angry with her after a time. But rather than offering a clear apology, she had Lisa text me to try to justify what she had done. The fact that Lisa's letter began, "I'm really sorry that mom couldn't be there because of me when you went into labor," only served to exacerbate the problem. However, you must comprehend what I was going through. She went on to say that after dating him for just 2 weeks, she had been dumped by someone she had loved for a very long time. She seems to have had feelings for this man since college. She never made a move because he had a girlfriend at the time. Even after graduating, she remained friends with him, stayed in touch with him, and still harbored feelings for him. After a recent breakup with his fiancée, that guy asked Lisa out 3 weeks later. After 2 weeks of dating, he told her he was not ready for another committed relationship so soon after terminating his long-term one and that he simply wanted to be friends. He blocked her everywhere and called her psychotic and crazy for taking a casual rebound so seriously after Lisa became upset and began to argue with him. In a normal situation, I could have felt sorry for her. However, Lisa is not a youngster going through her first heartbreak. She is 25 years old. He was only using her as a rebound, and she should have known it. Even worse, her friends specifically advised her not to approach him because they knew he had recently ended a committed relationship. I couldn't bring myself to feel sorry for her. And I was incensed that our mother chose not to attend her granddaughter's birth because she couldn't handle ending her relationship with a man she had dated for 2 weeks. This came after 9 whole months of feigning excitement over the baby. Since neither of them could see anything wrong with their actions, Lisa's message just made matters worse. I blocked them both on social media, email, and the phone. It was around a week before they tried to get in touch with me again in any other way. The christening ceremony in the church where our family has been for centuries followed. Only a few of my hospital co-workers attended the small, private ceremony, including my aunt, with whom I have a great relationship, and my godmothers, Maria and Kelly. My mother somehow found out about the ceremony even though I'm positive none of these folks told her about it. Since she knows them from her years of volunteering at the church, I have a suspicion that one of the choir women may have told her. I'm going to report the person in question to the church administration because their gossip was very uncalled for and created a lot of drama. When my mother learned, she came to my condo the day after the christening. My mom wouldn't leave, even when I claimed I wasn't home, and I was attempting to put my daughter to sleep after a very demanding morning. She simply continued to ring the doorbell repeatedly. My daughter was becoming more and more agitated by the minute, so after 30 minutes of this, I opened the door to face her. She began scolding me right away for not being designated godmother and not being invited to the christening. We got into a furious disagreement when I told her that I had already made up my mind and that she couldn't change it. Her explanation was that she was merely attempting to support Lisa because, in her words, she was obviously going through something terrible. At least you had your doctor friends by your side, my mother said. However, Lisa's friends had specifically advised her not to date that guy, so she was unable to even discuss her problems with them. All she had to talk to was me, and she was struggling greatly. She moved in with me for that reason. She couldn't stand being by herself. Instead of being so cold and selfish, you ought to have shown more empathy as the older sister. What I was hearing was unbelievable. I told her that I didn't feel sorry for Lisa because she was solely to blame, and I felt even less sorry for my mother because she took the decision to not support me throughout delivery, not to mention to break her commitment to assist me in the last few weeks of my pregnancy. I could hear my daughter crying inside before the conflict got out of hand. I informed my mother that I couldn't waste time arguing with her about her bad decisions because I had to look after my child. Before I phoned security, I urged her to leave and shut the door in her face. Even when she eventually left, things didn't stop there. Since then, a number of my hospital co-workers have informed me that my mother has been disparaging me on social media, calling me evil and self-centered. I've seen the screenshots that people have sent me while I blocked her. I've done everything in my power to be a good mother to both of my daughters, but I guess some people just can't see that, she wrote in one of her posts. I can't be in one place at once. Being cut off from my granddaughter's life is my punishment for choosing to be there for the daughter who had no one else. My heart breaks for Lisa, who still hopes her sister will understand what she was going through, she said in another post. Although Lisa feels bad for causing me to miss the birth of my first grandchild, she is not the issue. I wish some people weren't so narcissistic and egotistical that they are unable to comprehend their sister's suffering. I was deeply affected by the most recent post. Karma always comes back around, she wrote. When you experience this firsthand as a mother, we'll see how you feel. A mother cannot be selfish, but a child can, so I'll forgive you for everything. A number of family members have contacted me, advising me to simply speak with Lisa and Mom and attempt to comprehend their perspective. My mother's posts have even been shared by certain members of my extended family, who have commented on them about how I'm tearing the family apart. I want an outside opinion even though I don't think I've done anything wrong. The stress of returning to work in the emergency room while taking care of a newborn isn't helping, and I'm aware that pregnancy and new motherhood can make you more emotional and irritable. However, it seems to me that my mother made her decision apparent when she put my sister's 2-week relationship drama ahead of the arrival of her grandson. Every day as physicians, we are taught to make tough choices, some of which require balancing conflicting priorities. That night, my mother made a decision as well. And she must now deal with the fallout. I've made the decision to put my daughter in a stable, drama-free home with folks who have shown they will truly be there for us when we need them. Update 1. Since my last post and the events that followed, I have given this situation a lot of thought from every perspective. Since some of you requested to see what was being stated, I would like to share the specific postings my mother has made since her social media campaign has escalated. I have tried my best to be a good mother to both of my daughters, but I guess some people just can't understand that I can't be everywhere at once, she wrote in her initial post. Therefore, I made the decision to support the daughter who was experiencing the greatest type of heartbreak and had no one else to lean on. Yes, that makes me the world's largest villain, but what does that make the daughter who excluded me from her life for such a trivial reason, and who refused to let me attend my granddaughter's baptism, any less of a monster? The epithet heartless would be appropriate. A few hours later, the second message said, I feel very sorry for Lisa. Lisa continues to hope that perhaps my other daughter will be understanding and attempt to comprehend what she was going through despite everything that has transpired. But I'm aware that it's useless. I know Lisa isn't the issue, but she doesn't want to be the reason I never get to be my first granddaughter's godmother. All I want is for her to see that and quit holding herself responsible for whatever has occurred. Additionally, I wish that some individuals would quit being so narcissistic and egotistical that they are unable to comprehend their sister's suffering. Yesterday's post, Karma Always Strikes Back, was the most current. A mother cannot be selfish, but a child may, so I will see you through this as a mother and forgive you for anything. She has shared numerous depressing statements about the challenges of motherhood in addition to these significant posts. She has gone to considerable lengths to describe all the drama in detail and paint me as the bad guy for everyone who contacts her directly to ask what's going on. I handle actual situations on a daily basis as an emergency physician. I find it not only upsetting but almost amusing when my mother and family attempt to portray my sister's 2-week relationship drama as some sort of serious problem that excused her from attending her grandchild's birth. I've received regular messages from a number of my relatives and uncles accusing me of being needlessly harsh with my mother and sister. One aunt even said that I should get therapy before I irreversibly harm my relationship with my family since I may be stubborn because of postpartum depression. Additionally, I've gotten messages from members of my extended family that I haven't spoken to in years. They are all suddenly quite knowledgeable about the dynamics of my family. They constantly talking about how supportive my mother was during my pregnancy, conveniently ignoring the fact that her support primarily took the form of remarks on social media and sporadic visits when it suited her. I'm even more sure of my choice now that I've read all of their messages and seen my mother's posts. That night, my mother made her decision. Her daughter going into labor was not as important to her as my sister's romantic disappointment. The facts won't change, no matter how much she tries to change the story. I will refrain from participating in their social media drama. I won't try to explain myself or post my side of the story to relatives who have already made up their minds. My daughter and my career must be my top priorities. I have to take care of a newborn while working 12-hour shifts in the emergency room. I don't have time or energy for folks who are solely interested in making my life more stressful. Through it all, Maria and Kelly have been amazing. In addition to bringing food and checking in on us, they have been volunteering to monitor the baby while I take a break between shifts. I want people like this in my daughter's life, people who are there when it counts, not just when it's convenient. So, no, I don't believe I'm being harsh or callous. Regarding who I can and cannot rely on, I'm being practical. I made my choice and my mother made hers. Update 2. Since my last post, which was about a week ago, things have gotten much worse. My mother must have realized that her online drama campaign wasn't receiving the response she was hoping for because I haven't replied to any of her posts on social media. She made the decision to come see me again this morning, but this time she brought Lisa along. After a particularly long night shift in the emergency room, I was at home trying to get my kid to go asleep when they unexpectedly arrived. They said they wanted to apologize through the door, but I didn't want to get into another argument right then. I was aware that they would ultimately want to clear the air, which would entail repeating everything that had transpired, even if I answered the door and they apologized. I lacked the mental and physical stamina to do that. Through the door, I informed them that I had just placed my kid to sleep and was occupied with her. I clarified that if they truly wanted to apologize, they would have to wait until I was free to speak because I wasn't in the right frame of mind for a conversation at the moment. Knowing that if I was impolite, they may start yelling and wake my daughter, I made an effort to be as courteous as possible. However, they began yelling anyhow, so I shouldn't have bothered to keep things civil. They drove all the way here, and I had refused to even open the door to let them in, so they started scolding me for being rude. Just so you know, I hadn't requested that they do any of that. My mother began yelling at me, accusing me of destroying the family and using my daughter as a weapon against her. Lisa added that I was being theatrical and self-centered about the whole thing. Despite the fact that a baby was napping inside, they continued to get louder and louder. Something inside of me exploded as I heard my daughter begin to stir and fuss via the baby monitor. I opened the door and made it clear that I would call the police and request a restraining order if they didn't leave my property right away. They appeared surprised, most likely because they didn't think I would defend myself. My mother attempted to explain that I was exaggerating and that, as a grandma, she had rights. At least Lisa appeared to understand that I wasn't playing a bluff. She began dragging our mom away. Despite being pulled away, my mother continued to move. She continued to yell things like, "You'll regret this when you need my help," and curse at me while calling me derogatory names. And "you can't deny me my granddaughter indefinitely." As she pulled her away, Lisa murmured to herself that I was always like this, and that I was never able to deal with things like a normal person. I decided not to call the police this time because I didn't want to make things worse, but I won't think twice if they come by again. Their actions are now having an impact on my daughter, so it's no longer just about me. She was crying from all the chaos and completely awake when I returned inside. I've already told the security staff at my building about the incident and given them my sister's and mother's descriptions. In case I ever need to pursue legal action, I also kept a record of everything that happened, including the time and the words that were said. I'm not keeping them away from my daughter because I'm upset about what transpired during my labor, to be clear. They have repeatedly demonstrated that they don't respect boundaries and will always put their own feelings ahead of my daughter's welfare, which is why I'm keeping them away. The most recent instance of such was today. At least their actions made it quite evident that I am not at all like my mother. Even if she may not care about me, I will stop at nothing to shield my child from harmful conduct, even if it means severing familial relations. Update 3. My life has mercifully returned to a manageable pattern since my previous post, which was almost 2 months ago. Overall, things have been going well, despite my extreme workload at work and taking care of my baby. I haven't spoken to my mother or Lisa in weeks, and Maria and Kelly come to visit often to spend time with my kid and me. Lisa continued to try to get in touch for some time. She made several other social media accounts to message me after I blocked her initial one. In those letters, she described how, because Mom was so furious over everything, she had taken the side of our mother in the most recent argument. Lisa asserted that Mom was too arrogant to acknowledge her mistakes because of her advanced age. Lisa asked me to initiate contact in order to help Mom mend her bond with her granddaughter. Regardless of how many texts she sent, I never replied to any of them. She seemed to grow weary of making new accounts eventually and gave up completely. I sincerely appreciate that because my position has not changed. My mother must apologize before I will consider forgiving her. I won't consider allowing her to become a grandmother until after that. I'm perfectly happy with my life as it is right now. Taking care of my baby has become a lot simpler after I switched to more regular day shifts at the hospital. My coworkers have been tremendously supportive, particularly the parents among them. They're aware of the difficulties in juggling a rigorous medical job with being a single mom. Our lives have become even more reliant on Maria and Kelly. My daughter has effectively adopted Maria's 3-year-old boy as her big brother, and it's adorable to watch them interact at our weekend get-togethers. In order to administer all of my daughter's examinations and immunizations individually, Kelly has been organizing her pediatric clinic schedule. It is impossible to overstate the difference between my mother's actions and my friend's unwavering support. My mother and sister appear to think that the secret to establishing relationships is using theatrical gestures and emotional manipulation, even though Maria and Kelly have assimilated into our daily lives effortlessly. They still don't realize that trustworthy behavior, not ostentatious, theatrical displays of emotion when it suits them, is what builds trust. At last, some of my relatives have begun to distance themselves. Some have even expressed regret for becoming involved before fully understanding the situation. Initially supporting my mother, one aunt said that she had observed similar patterns of manipulative conduct from Mom in previous family contexts. In this calm setting, my daughter is flourishing. Kelly reassures me that she is in excellent health and that she is meeting all of her developmental goals on time. For both of us, the consistency of our current regimen has been excellent. There are moments when I question whether my mother is aware that she isn't getting to see her granddaughter grow up. She was unable to put her daughter's needs first during one of the most important times in life, not because I'm trying to be spiteful. Her priorities are clear from the fact that she put Lisa's small romantic setback ahead of attending her grandchild's birth. I recognize the irony that, despite my mother accusing me of using my daughter as a weapon, she attempted to mend our relationship, but only on her terms, by utilizing my pregnancy and her position as a grandmother. She desired all of the benefits of being a grandma without having to deal with the obligations or compromises that come with the position. I've gained a great deal of knowledge about motherhood over the last few months. It's now quite evident that being a mother involves being there for your child when they need you, not just when it's convenient or when you want something. My mother's behavior during my pregnancy and labor gave me a clear indication of the type of grandma she would be, someone who puts Lisa's drama and her own demands before of my daughter's welfare. I'm concentrating on creating the secure, caring atmosphere I want for my daughter to grow up in right now. Even if she doesn't have as many biological relatives, she does have something much more valuable: grown-ups who always prioritize her needs. The door isn't shut all the time. I would think about reintegrating my mother into our life if she ever truly admits her actions and extends a heartfelt apology. However, I refuse to wait for that to occur. Furthermore, I will not jeopardize my daughter's emotional health in the meanwhile. Protecting your child from harmful family dynamics might sometimes be the healthiest thing you can do for them, even if it means avoiding your own mother.
Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.
My mother admitted to hating me simply because I was an unplanned child. At my wedding, my parents chose his party over mine. This is about how my family relationship totally collapsed once I married Emily, who is 25F. I am 26M and in my last year of medical school. My mother has consistently given preference to my older brother, Marcus, who is 27 years old, over me. She has loved Marcus since we were kids and she has never concealed it from me. I'm not sure what it is about him that makes him her favorite. My parents chose to give me to my grandparents to raise for 8 years after I was born, only a year after Marcus. Taking care of Marcus and me simultaneously was too much for my mother to handle. My mother struggled to care for us both because she was suffering from postpartum depression, according to my grandparents. My mother intended to give me up to my grandparents, George and Eleanor Cooper, who saw the seriousness of her illness and didn't fight too hard. Robert, my 52-meter-tall father, was unable to care for me by himself while working. I grew up in my grandparents' loving and contented home, feeling safe and content because I was unaware as a newborn that they were not my own parents. But things started to change when I was able to walk and comprehend speech. Occasionally, my parents would pay me a visit and explain that they were my biological parents and that I was only temporarily staying with my grandparents. For me, these visits were always perplexing and bittersweet. I was thrilled to see my folks, on the one hand. Conversely, I experienced a feeling of bewilderment and desolation. After playing and chatting with me for 2 to 3 hours, my parents would say farewell and head back home, taking Marcus with them. I realized that Marcus was always their top focus as this trend persisted. My parents' few visits made me feel unwelcome, even though my grandparents gave me all the love and attention they could. My parents finally took me back home when I turned 8 years old. I was initially thrilled to see my family again and be reunited with them. But as I realized how much better my life had been with my grandparents, the excitement gradually subsided. Living in the same room as Marcus was one of the first adjustments I had to make. My parents had the option of giving me a spare bedroom, but Marcus had always had his own. In order for Marcus and I to become brothers, they insisted that we share a room. Marcus made it quite evident to me that he detested this new arrangement. Marcus would label me a brat and a stranger if I read comic books my grandparents had bought me or played too loudly. Marcus would scoff and call me childish if I attempted to adorn my side of the room with posters or sketches of my favorite superheroes. Marcus would roll his eyes and mockingly refer to me as the teacher's pet if I proudly showed my parents my good grades when I brought them home. Marcus would tell me that I sounded terrible and that I should give up when I practiced playing the keyboard that my grandparents had given me. Marcus would make fun of me for even the smallest things, such as the way I arranged my toys or the way I described my day. The term dork or nerd would be used to describe me whenever I expressed an interest in reading or learning something new. I eventually came to the realization that the activities I liked turned into points of friction. There was a persistent sense of tension and conflict in place of the warmth and welcome I had experienced at my grandparents' house. Everything I did was problematic for Marcus, which made me feel self-conscious. Imagine being teased for every little thing by your older brother, someone you admire. It causes you to begin questioning yourself. I was too young to realize that he was really bullying me. I wanted to blend in with my family because I felt like I might be the issue. I only read my comic books in the school library after I stopped doing so at home. I completely quit using my keyboard. I did all of this in the hopes that if I changed, my brother would accept me. Unfortunately, Marcus's attitude toward me didn't change despite my best efforts to fit in and adapt. I felt like I was losing a piece of myself the more I attempted to win his approval. Marcus would still find ways to make fun of me even after I stopped doing all the things that irritated him. Due to a skin problem that has since been treated, I recall having a lot of pimples as a child. Marcus would continuously comment on how awful my face was and how ugly I looked. I would cry and go to my parents since hearing this was so painful. My mother, Linda, 50F, would encourage me to stop sobbing and be a man instead of standing by me and reprimanding Marcus. Dad was also of little assistance. He would want to avoid the situation. Instead of coming to Mom, she would advise me that I should confront my brother. I felt lost and alone as a result of Marcus's bullying and my parents' incapacity to provide me with a sense of security and love. I missed the supportive atmosphere I shared with my grandparents, where I always felt appreciated and understood. Whenever they could, my grandparents would come see me, and they would attempt to speak to Marcus politely and warn him not to bother me. However, he never gave them any attention. I gradually turned into a very irate teenager as I grew older. Marcus did not like it at all when I became taller than him, despite the fact that he was older than me. To annoy me, he would label me a slender man or a giant because of my height. But this time, I began returning the favor by calling him a shrimp rather than requesting assistance from my parents. In order to prevent him from reaching his books without a chair, I would purposefully place them on the highest shelf or above the cabinet. This would give me an excuse to tease him. Even though I occasionally received reprimands for retaliating against him when he complained to our parents, I still felt a mixture of delight and remorse. It was satisfying to defend myself, but it also meant that our house was growing more antagonistic. We fought each other more often and fiercely, none of us prepared to give up. The annual awards ceremony at my school was the final straw that made it clear to me how much my parents preferred my brother above me. I was on the verge of winning the top prize in my class since I had put my all into my academics. I hoped for my parents' pride and encouragement, so I wanted their support and attendance at the event. However, my mother told me a few days prior to the ceremony that Marcus had a swimming competition on the same day. Even though his competition and my ceremony were hours apart, Marcus wanted to concentrate on his preparation because, in my mother's opinion, he needed her more. My dad would be there to support me, she told me. I accepted the fact that at least one parent would support me, despite my disappointment. I was taken aback when my dad unexpectedly failed to show up on the day of the wedding. Marcus was having a panic attack before his competition, and my mom apparently contacted him immediately to tell him that she needed him there to help him relax. Dad decided not to attend my awards ceremony and instead hurried to Marcus's side. I recall that there were no recognized faces in the audience supporting me when I approached to accept my medal. All I could feel was a deep sense of abandonment and loneliness. Marcus and my dad weren't there when I got home later. When I contacted them, I found out that they were still with Marcus. It took them many hours to return, ecstatic and celebrating Marcus's triumph in his contest. They informed me how wonderfully he had done and he was holding an award. As though it were the most important thing of the year, they gave him a tight hug and congratulated him on his achievements. They didn't even offer me an apology for being absent from my ceremony. It was obviously a sobering reminder of my place in my parents' priorities. In contrast to Marcus, I was often overlooked and undervalued despite my efforts and accomplishments. Throughout my time in college, this trend persisted. My parents had a great celebration when Marcus was accepted to a nearby public institution, but they hardly noticed my acceptance to medical school. My mother continued to disparage Emily, a talented medical researcher, even after I began dating her. She would say that Emily was too focused on her profession and not enough on her family, and that I should look for someone more conventional, like Marcus's girlfriend. Let's move on to the primary motivation behind this writing. I asked Emily to marry me 6 months ago, and she accepted. I had conflicting responses when I told my parents about the engagement out of courtesy and because I wanted them to hear the news from me rather than from someone else. My mom said nothing, but my dad thanked me and appeared really delighted for me. She then texted me to let me know how disappointed she was that I hadn't given her voice regarding Emily. I invited Marcus and everyone else to the wedding 2 months ago. Even though he didn't congratulate me after we got engaged, I still didn't feel bad about this and invited him to the wedding. I was a little let down when Marcus unexpectedly denied the invitation without providing an explanation. What really surprised me though, was when my dad called to let me know that my mom had chosen not to attend my wedding, even though he would be there. I was surprised and inquired as to why. My mom was going to my wedding, but my dad clarified that Marcus had allegedly scheduled an anniversary party for his girlfriend on the same day. I followed Marcus on social media and knew they had recently celebrated their anniversary, so this news was strange. I chose to speak with Marcus directly to get clarification rather than initially going up against my mother. Even though we didn't talk much, I wanted to treat the matter with dignity and respect. I gave Marcus a call and asked him directly if he was truly not intending to attend my wedding because of the anniversary party. Marcus surprised me by confirming that this was true. He clarified that at first, he and his girlfriend had intended to have a party to honor their anniversary, but they lacked the necessary funds. Marcus acknowledged that he had worked hard to find a unique location for their celebration that was within their means in order to make up for it to his fiancée. Unfortunately, he stated that my wedding day coincided with the venue's only available date. I apologized and politely pointed out that he could have picked a different day, highlighting how much I would have valued his attendance at my wedding. Marcus, however, responded that his girlfriend's pleasure was more important than anything else and made it plain that he wouldn't move their anniversary celebration date to fit my wedding schedule. His remarks were hurtful, and he ended the phone before I could respond. My mother provided the same old justification she frequently gave me when I phoned her to discuss the matter. She stressed that my dad was already going to attend my wedding, so I shouldn't be selfish and ask her to go too. And that Marcus would be upset if she didn't go to his anniversary celebration. My voice nearly broke as I told her how hurtful it was for me to always feel like she treated me less than my brother. I told her that although she was free to do as she pleased, I would no longer recognize her as a parent. My mother then laughed at what I had said and advised me not to get so worked up over my wedding. I decided to stop talking to my mother completely after the argument we had over her decision to not come to my wedding. My attention turned to making sure Emily had the most exquisite wedding and that our celebration was full of love and happiness. Even though I was disappointed with my parents, I was thankful that my dad kept his word and supported me on my special day. My grandparents, who had previously expected my mom's absence despite their encouragement, were naturally saddened and disappointed when Emily and I ultimately were married. They had even forewarned my mother in advance, stressing how crucial her attendance was. They were deeply affected by the fact that she still decided not to go. The situation worsened when Marcus posted photos from his anniversary celebration, in which my mother was seen drinking and dancing uncontrollably. The way they both appeared to show off their indifference to my feelings regarding their absence from my wedding was the problem, not what she was doing. That's the current situation. Throughout the day, my mother never once phoned Emily or me to say hello or to offer congratulations. Though I'm not sure how to move on, I do know that I can't allow them to continue to harm me in this way. Emily is understandably upset with their treatment of us, particularly with reference to our wedding, but she supports any choice I make. Is my desire to sever all contact with my mother and brother an overreaction? Is it time to accept that they will never change and move on with my life without them, or should I give them another chance to make things right? First update. My wedding was a month ago, and since then things have taken an unexpected turn. I got a ton of encouraging notes after I last posted about my mom picking my brother's anniversary party over my wedding. I appreciate all of your nice remarks and guidance. What has transpired since then is as follows. Although my grandparents, George and Eleanor, have always been my staunchest allies, I never thought they would act in such an extreme manner. They told my mother last week that they might take her out of their inheritance and leave me as the only heir. They said that their choice was the result of years of witnessing her ignore me and favor Marcus, not just the fact that she missed my wedding. According to my grandmother, she and my mother had a furious discussion during which she detailed all of the instances of favoritism she had seen over the years. She cited specific instances, such as my mother's unrelenting criticism of Emily, the disregard for my academic accomplishments, and her decision to go to Marcus's hurriedly organized anniversary party rather than my wedding. The way my mother reacted to this news was what truly surprised me. She called me nonstop within hours of finding out she might not be able to inherit. She was crying about the inheritance, not our tense relationship or the harm she had caused, when I eventually answered one of her calls. In fact, she asked, "How could you have allowed your grandparents to harm me like this? I am their daughter." Then she made a startling suggestion. In order for her to attend, she recommended that Emily and I conduct another wedding ceremony, this time with only close family members. She said she wanted to put things right after giving her actions a lot of thought. But when she promptly followed up with, "Once we do this, you can tell your grandparents everything is fine between us," her comments seemed false. Her attempt to explain her prior absence by stating, "You have to understand, Marcus needed me that day," was the most bizarre aspect. They had already paid for the location, and his partner was going through a difficult moment. What should I have done? She was still unable to recognize how her decisions had harmed me. Marcus also became involved and texted me in a furious manner. He said that I was manipulating our grandparents and making them hostile to the family. He wrote, "You've always been their favorite, and now you're using that to steal mom's inheritance." He didn't appear to see the irony of his criticism of favoritism. Emily was also contacted on social media by his girlfriend, who said that they were being unkind to Marcus by interfering with their anniversary celebration with all of this family drama. Emily replied, "Interesting how you're concerned about your anniversary celebration being ruined when you deliberately scheduled it on our wedding day," before blocking her right away. "My father is now stuck in the middle, even though he was at least there during our wedding. He tried to be a mediator when he called me yesterday. He remarked, 'Your mother truly regrets missing the wedding. Is it not possible for you to perform this minor ceremony for her? It would mean so much.' He was silent for a while before acknowledging, 'She's not handling this well, but she does love you.' After I brought up the fact that mom appeared more focused on the inheritance than our relationship. Emily and I spoke about holding another ceremony, but we both felt that it would not feel genuine. 'A wedding isn't just a photo opportunity,' Emily said. 'It's about sharing love with those who truly care about us. Your mother had the opportunity to attend but declined. The fact that my mother has begun to alter history is especially upsetting. She is explaining to her family that she was forced to miss the wedding since Marcus needed her assistance during a trying moment. Conveniently, she is omitting the fact that it was an anniversary celebration that was purposefully planned on the day of our wedding. Mom's sister, my aunt, called me lately to tell me about something fascinating. It seems that before the wedding, my mother had informed her that she was teaching me a lesson by not going. She assumed that I would abruptly give in and move our appointment to accommodate Marcus's party. She was truly surprised that I had planned the wedding without her when that didn't occur. Last week's phone conversation with Marcus was the most illuminating. Perhaps driven by resentment over the inheritance issue, he revealed in a rare moment of candor that there were other dates open for the anniversary celebration. His fiancée thought it would be lovely to celebrate on the same day as a family wedding, so they decided on our wedding date out of a number of alternatives. "You've always had everything handed to you by our grandparents," he said chillingly when I questioned why he would intentionally harm me in that way. "It's time you experienced what it's like to be disappointed." Through it all, Emily has been my pillar of support. She made a point that I hadn't thought of. My mother's sudden desire for a fresh ceremony isn't motivated by a want to commemorate our marriage, but rather by her wish to be a caring mother for our grandparents. Emily claimed that if she truly wanted to make amends, she would be expressing regret for years of favoritism rather than only attempting to set up a picture op. I am steadfast in my resolve to forego another ceremony. This is about upholding boundaries and self-respect, not about retaliation or retribution. My mother had the chance to be present on one of the most significant days of my life, but she declined. That fact cannot be altered by any number of contrived pictures or theatrical rituals. I'm currently not in communication with Marcus and only have sporadic contact with my parents. My grandparents have been quite supportive of this choice, telling me that sometimes the best course of action is to avoid harmful people. I'm resolutely pursuing my medical education while Emily and I concentrate on creating our future together. Sincerely, I feel lighter after standing my ground, even though I realize this update may come across as resentful. Yes, it is difficult to know that my brother purposefully attempted to overshadow my wedding day, and it is painful that my mother is more concerned with her inheritance than with our relationship. However, I'm not questioning myself or attempting to win their approval for the first time in my life. Perhaps learning to accept the family we have while forming the family we require is what it truly means to grow up. Update 2. 2 weeks have passed since my last update, and the matter is now resolved. My grandfather, George, called me yesterday to let me know that he and Grandma Eleanor had formally created new wills that excluded my mother entirely and named me as their only heir. Even though I had expected this to happen following my previous post, it still surprised me to hear it formally. My grandfather clarified that my mother's treatment of me wasn't the only factor in their choice. They think that I would be able to care for them in their later years more effectively than my mother could. He said that they had faith in my abilities to handle their money sensibly as a future doctor and that, "We trust you won't abandon us to a care facility unless absolutely necessary." As you might imagine, my mother, Linda, has not been pleased with this news. She has been phoning me nonstop and messaging me, saying I have no right to inherit anything from her parents and that I have deceived her. Despite the fact that I haven't gotten anything yet, It seems as though she believes I am stealing from her. She reacted with charges that I had swayed her in their favor when I adamantly advised her to speak with my grandparents directly about her concerns. I reminded her that any modifications to their will were a direct result of the things she had done over the years that had caused friction between us and affected their choice. As our disagreement heated up, she revealed something extremely upsetting in a moment of unadulterated honesty, or maybe resentment. She expressed her wish that I had never been created. She accused me of creating her postpartum depression and disclosed that I was an unplanned pregnancy. The most startling aspect was when she acknowledged that she had originally thought about placing me for adoption in order to get rid of me, but she changed her mind due to her parents' conservative beliefs and chose to have them take care of me instead. With Marcus, things were always easier, she remarked. He never required the same level of care that you did. I never felt inadequate as a mother because of him. At last, her comments clarified everything. She was partial to Marcus because she felt guilty and resentful of me, not because she wanted to love him more. For the first time since the wedding, I contacted my father, Robert, following that chat. He told me that he never regretted having me, even though he admitted that some of Mom's statements regarding my unplanned pregnancy and her battles with postpartum depression were accurate. He genuinely apologized for the first time after I told him how their years of favoritism toward Marcus had terribly wounded me. My dad has acknowledged my decision to give me some space, even though I'm not sure how we will continue to be friends. He now appears to realize how his passive part in my upbringing fueled the dysfunction in the family. Given how much I admired Marcus when we were younger, I sent him one last text telling him how he could have been a better and more encouraging brother. When I moved home with our parents, I talked openly about how lonely I felt growing up with our grandparents and how much I desired his approval. I made it plain that I had no grudges toward him for being Mom's favorite. He didn't, but I informed him that he had the option to be a supportive part of my life rather than compete with me. As an elder brother, I also expressed my disappointment in him and said I was ending our connection. His number is blocked, and I don't currently have any plans to unlock it anytime soon. Throughout it all, Emily has been my staunchest ally. Every day she reminds me that family is about individuals who choose to love and support you without conditions, not just genetic ties. Together, we're concentrating on creating our future, and I know that I can handle any obstacles that may arise because she is at my side. Although hearing my mother's admission of my birth and her animosity toward me was upsetting, it was also somewhat freeing. At last, it clarified the pattern of conduct I had encountered throughout my life. Even though it doesn't always make the hurt go away, realizing why someone injured you might help you realize that their behavior was never motivated by your value as a person. I appreciate all of your help along the way, Reddit. When I was doubting myself, your messages and remarks kept me going. It really helped to know that I wasn't the only one who had to deal with familial favoritism. I would especially like to thank individuals who had similar experiences. Through this process, I may have lost some family members, but I have also acquired self-respect, clarity, and the bravery to put my own health first. That can occasionally be the best bequest we can have.
Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.